Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business, share them with us so that we can all learn as well. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social posting, or any of the old traditional marketing methods that everyone has just learned to hate and have become ineffective in as well. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn, have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest is Angela Hobbs. She is the owner of Wilkinson Hall Limited, where she's providing innovation, incubator, and accelerator program design, executive and group coaching. She also sits on a few boards and does fractional work as well. So, Angela, thanks so much for being on the show today. And I want to start off by asking you a question that I always love to start off with, which is this. If you somehow were able to go back in time and start over in your business, but knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 12 months?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. It's great to be chatting to you. What would I do different in the first 12 months? Do you know what? Nothing. Because there were things I did when I started my first business where I was very young, very inexperienced. I had no idea what I should or shouldn't be doing. But sometimes I think that bravery and energy can take you to places you wouldn't go if you really, really thought about it. I should add a caution to that, but generally, no, I wouldn't change a thing.
Okay, which is great. And I love that because in a lot of ways, I kind of feel the same way as well. It's like I wouldn't change it because I wouldn't have learned the things that I learned in the process. So let me ask the question a little bit differently. If someone was asking you what you would advise someone to do differently than what you did starting up, what would be the advice you gave yourself so that it maybe wouldn't have been as hard, or maybe you hadn't stumbled over some of the things you look back and go, gosh, that would have been easier if I would have known this?
That's a great question. Okay, what I would have done is looking back, the things that worked were being out, talking to people, connecting with people, having conversations, being generous about connecting other people and building a network. And every minute I spent doing that, looking back, I know that was the best thing to do, rather than some of them wasted hours I spent sitting in front of a laptop or working with other people trying to create the perfect post or the perfect website. Don't let perfection get in the way of activity, I say.
Yeah, very, very true. Absolutely. It's one of those things where we try to get everything perfect, then we launch it, and we find out it's not perfect.
It's already out of date.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you've grown over the years and scaled and grown in your business, what's been the hardest part of scaling, but not falling into the trap of being salesy or spammy or all this stuff you see a lot of people fall into as they're growing and developing their business?
Yeah, really good point. I think it's developing trust, and it sounds so outdated, but I like it. Is, just behave around people in the way you want them to behave around you. And again, go back to that brave thing. If there's something someone says that you're really not sure about, gently ask them, what can you unpack that? Can you explain that a little bit? And that authenticity and just being present, but being consistent really, really counts with me. And I think it
Yeah.
helps with others. I think, right now we're in an environment, aren't we, where information is cheap. We can get it in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes. We can use it, reproduce it, own it, whatever we want to do with it. But we still have the opportunity to connect with people authentically and be open and see what you can build together. That's what I value.
Yeah, absolutely. That trust element is really big, which leads on to another question I'd love to ask Angela, which goes along with what you're saying, but kind of from a different angle. So what's the one thing that you've changed in how you build relationships that has made the prospecting and selling process feel easier for you?
And being very open. Sometimes I think if I look back to the early stages of my career, I definitely had that whole imposter, I know, such an overused phrase, but imposter syndrome. It was often challenging when I was in my 20s in a, sorry, and no offense to anyone whatsoever, but it was a relatively male dominated environment. And sometimes it was hard to be the only woman in the room, and equally hard to look for other women to bring into the room because it was difficult. So I guess now I think I would just say, be brave and say what you've got to say, be open, and don't be afraid of being yourself and present and active. And going back, link that to that authenticity piece as well. If you've got something to say and it's open and it's true and you're clear about what you want and what you might be able to do in return, that's cool. That's okay. But don't be afraid
Yeah.
to say it.
Yeah. And I think that it's a really big part of building relationships in business. And obviously, when you have a client, it's really important to do that. But even when you're vetting someone or prospecting and they're doing their due diligence around stuff, people can feel that just openness as opposed to people where they're in presentation mode, business mode. It's like, well, is this a real person I'm dealing with? And I think it makes a massive difference for sure. Yeah, I
I
love that.
agree. And it happens a lot, if you don't mind me adding. It
Yeah,
happens
of
a lot
course.
in coaching. Like sometimes I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and I can have a early stage intro call. And if I genuinely don't think I can support, enable, or add anything to what that person is asking, I would far rather explain that and say why, and then recommend anyone else that I can think of that could do a better job in that circumstances with their knowledge and experience than I could. Why would I waste someone's time or budget if I can't produce something of value?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very true. I agree with you. Absolutely. Talking about like just being open and honest and everything, one of the things that I think is really helpful as business owners is to just talk openly about the challenges we have in business because we all have them. And sometimes we can feel very isolated in it. We can think, oh, I'm the only one that's dealing with this. No one's else ever dealt with this before. Obviously, it's not true. But so I always like to just ask the question so we can kind of normalize this and all feel a little bit more normal. Like we all go through this stuff. So having said that, what's the number one biggest challenge that you've faced in your business? And it can be anything from operations to dealing with clients to financial to whatever it might be. It could be personal stuff that's impacted the business. What's the number one biggest challenge you faced, and what's the lesson that you've learned from that?
When I've worked with co-founders or teams that are not connected, and being in that situation where you're listening to people who are not aligned, they're maybe not talking to each other, I mean, really talking, and yet they're on this huge mission to raise a lot of money or to solve a huge feasibility problem with whatever they're introducing. And you can feel that tension, you can hear it. And I think the most important thing is to be able to step back and be honest and open and say, I know this is an imperative. I know we have to finish this piece of work, but we're going to finish it better and with a lot higher rate of success at the end if we can just not walk around that elephant in the room anymore, just give it a pat and a stroke and just talk to it and make sure it wanders off and it's not still getting in the way of your success. And that is a difficult thing to say to people. Sometimes it doesn't always land. But again, I think it's open and authentic, and it causes stress to the founders or the teams that are involved in it, right? Too. So if you can help them get over it, do it.
Yeah, yeah. Have you found any tips on being able to deal with those challenging situations? Because, we all have challenging situations, whether it's with team or whether it's with clients we work with. Any tips that you've learned that's just helped to be able to introduce it, deal with it so it doesn't compound the situation, but actually help solve it?
Yeah, I think again, when you're up against a deadline, it's like looking for perfection. It's the same kind of message. There's that almost shared push to we have to get this done. But it's getting it done isn't going to be done in a really good way, my top tip is always, if I'm in the middle of a meeting or a planning session or a workshop, whatever it is, there's nothing better than just saying, okay, can we just take 10 minutes to go and do whatever you want to do? Run, go grab a coffee, breathe, just do something and just settle yourself and think where you are and what we have to achieve and pause. And there's a really brilliant person, and I'm so sorry, I cannot remember who said it. Oh my goodness, Tim Ferriss. Tim
Yeah, yeah.
Ferriss says, there's nothing that will be harmed by a 10-minute walk. And I think I'm paraphrasing, but it was a brilliant thing. The way he said it a lot better than me. But I think it's so true. Just breathing and pausing and thinking, hang on a minute, what am I doing here? Let's go back to the real purpose and align on it and crack on. We're all under pressure, but let's do it together.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I heard someone else say something similar where they said, it's amazing what you can solve with a 10-minute walk, and it is crazy just getting out there and just letting your brain process, which is really cool. So, well, looking over the next 2 to 3 years, what are your goals in the business? What would you like to achieve?
Yeah, thanks. So I've mentioned I worked a lot with entrepreneurs and founders, often after Series A and right all the way through from pre-seed. What I'd really like to do more of is work for smaller businesses that maybe are not set on that. How quickly can I reach my 5 million? Maybe they just want to, not just, I will remove that word. Maybe they want a business that works for them, that is profitable and sustainable. It doesn't mean they have to spend 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, building it, running it, growing it. But people who just want some support and help in, well, how do I create that business that I really want? And starting with getting groups of people together and saying, okay, tell me what this great business would look like in 12 months. How much time do you want to spend working in it? Where are your vulnerabilities? Where are your opportunities? And now let's make that happen. Because I think in the UK, UK SMEs are the biggest employers in the whole country if you group them together. But there isn't, although it seems like there's a lot of support, there isn't really. And just being able to talk to other business owners and go, it's not just me. Wow, somebody else struggles with that. What can I do? So again, creating connections, communities where people can talk about what gets in the way and find ways to get over it would be a really good thing. I'd like to do that.
That's amazing. I love that. And you're right. There's so many SMEs out there, but the more support and just being there, because as I said earlier, being a business owner can be very lonely, and we all go through stuff, and being able to have that support is amazing. So I love that. I love that mission, Angela. That's really, really cool. Well, for people that are wanting to learn a little bit more about you and how to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn is a great way, or just simply email me. It's hello@wilkinsonhall.com. I'm always happy to have a chat. There's contact details on my website, which is wilkinsonhall.com. And I like the opportunity to meet and chat with other people, find out what they need, if I can do something.
Amazing. Well, I definitely recommend everyone checking out Angela on LinkedIn and her website she just mentioned there, or email. And if you need any support, you can hear her passion in what she does. So reach out to her if you feel that it will be helpful to you at all. So Angela, thank you so much for being on the show today and just sharing your practical words of wisdom and experience throughout your business experience and career. So thank you so much for that. And as a reminder for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversation with their ideal prospects without using even the old traditional methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn and have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.